Welcome to this episode of our program Daily Debate. As usual, we will be discussing an important topic. Tonight we'll be focusing on how Egypt is giving a priority to the file of industry. And recently, or in the very recent years, the leadership and the state have been taking measures in particular in the investments and industrial sectors in order to be able to give a life breath for the Egyptian economy and in light of the current crises that are growing in the region and on the international arenas. The cabinet has already announced that Egypt will adopt a 5-year initiative worth $150 billion to support the agriculture and industrial production sectors. The initiative already aims to enhance local production by focusing on priority sectors. And Egypt has, as I said at the very beginning, implementing steps to support this very particular sector. Last month, President Abdel issued a decree to establish the Supreme Council for Investment, which will be presided by the President himself and aims at boosting investment and economic growth in the country. Tonight we'll be focusing on that important segment, or that important sector of the Egyptian economy with our distinguished guest, Dr. Abdel Ghoneim, Vice President of the Arab Union for Digital Economy and Economic Expert. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you very much. Welcome.
Before we delve into our discussion, let me first take the top story of the day. And President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, the Supreme Commander of the Armed Forces, held a meeting on Thursday with the General Commander of the Armed Forces, Minister of Defense and Military Production, General Mohammed Zaki, Chief of Staff, General Osama Askar, and a number of high-ranking officers at the State's Strategic Command Center. The meeting tackled a number of files and issues about the armed forces' activities and efforts to safeguard the national security on all strategic locations. The meeting also tackled developments in the regional and international arenas and the repercussions on the national security in light of the existing circumstances and challenges in the region. The President hailed efforts exerted by the armed forces in all missions with the great role it plays in protecting the state's borders against all hostilities and probable threats. The President also expressed appreciation to the great role played by the armed forces and their main contribution in supporting the development process and in implementing the national mega projects in cooperation with all the state's institutions to provide citizens a decent life. The meeting came after President Sisi had an inspection tour at the military academy and a number of complexes at the State Strategic Command Center in the new administrative capital. Later, the President held a meeting with Prime Minister Dr. Mustafa Madbouli and a group of ministers and officials at the new administrative capital Strategic Command's headquarters. The President called for continuous work to ensure that the government's relocation to the new administrative capital will be a solid basis for comprehensive modernization of the Egyptian administrative apparatus. He said that this should come in a way that is characterized by governance and digitization with the attention to institutional development. The head of state also stressed the importance of selecting the most efficient elements in all institutions and providing professional, technical and personal training for them within the framework of a comprehensive and serious training system. In order that this aims at ensuring the maximize utilization of the advanced technological and informational infrastructure that was constructed in the new administrative capital in accordance with the state's comprehensive development path. President Sisi stressed that the state's comprehensive development path is based on modernizing the infrastructure and maximizing human potentials in parallel with the framework of the sustainably building and developing the Egyptian state. The presidency said that so far 14 ministries and government entities were moved to the new capital, adding that the rest of the ministries and agencies are preparing to also relocate to the new capital soon. Right, welcome back and to our main topic of tonight. And before we delve into our discussion, let me first have this quick report. And President Sisi instructs government to support industrial complexes, maximize production capacity. Let's watch.
President Abdel Sisi has given instructions to support industrial complexes nationwide to ensure they reach their maximum production capacity. During the meeting, El-Sisi instructed that any obstacles facing young investors be removed, particularly obstacles facing small and medium-sized industries. The President also instructed the Ministry of Trade and Industry to facilitate procedures related to industrial investments and to communicate regularly with national businessmen to understand the challenges they face and provide relevant solutions. President El-Sisi's directives aim to support the national industry sector and enhance partnership with the private sector to boost the state's capacities in industry. Meanwhile, the Trade Minister reviewed steps to benefit from 4,808 industrial facilities across Egypt. He also touched on the Ministry's plan to support and stimulate industrial activities at the national level by strengthening industrial investment operations. During the inauguration ceremony in northern Egypt of 2 investment zones affiliated with the General Authority for Investment and Free Zones, GAFE, El-Sisi had pointed out the state's keenness on removing any impediments to industrial development. He affirmed that obstacles to investment will be removed within a month or 2. The President also highlighted the state's commitment to addressing problems facing investment, pointing out that the carrying out of a project denotes more income not only to the company executing the project but also to every citizen working on it. Last month, President El-Sisi issued a decree to establish the Supreme Council for Investment, which will be presided by the President and includes the Prime Minister and a number of ministers, as well as the heads of the concerned institutions. This move was part of the ongoing reform program adopted by the government to boost investments and economic growth in the country. El-Sisi affirmed that the industrial sector tops the government's priorities. President El-Sisi has affirmed that efforts are underway to facilitate and streamline investment procedures, stressing that all barriers facing investors will be removed within 1 month or 2 from now.
مصر فيها 100 مليون. مصر كمان مساحتها 1,000,000 كيلومتر مربع. بس في حجم ضخم جدا من الأراضي احنا مش عايشين عليه. ما خدناش بالنا على مدى 60-70 سنة فاتوا ان الكلام ده هيبقى ليه تأثير كبير جدا وخطير على حياتنا ومستقبلنا. لكن احنا مش سايبين لا القاهرة ولا اسكندرية ولا بورسعيد ولا المحافظات، بنتحرك في كل القديم والجديد مع بعض عشان يليق بينا ويليق بالمصريين. يعني الموضوع مش مباني بس، لا ده تطور كبير قوي احنا بنعمله. فأرجو ان احنا نستعد مفكرين مثقفين فنانين. هذا الحدث الكبير ميلاد دولة جديدة بافتتاح العاصمة الجديدة. ميلاد دولة جديدة. إعلان جمهورية تانية.
Right, welcome back, and let me again welcome our guest, Dr. Abdel Ghoneim, Vice President of the Arab Union for Digital Economy and Economic Expert. Thank you again.
Yeah, thank you. Welcome.
And indeed, the announcement of the new republic. And let me take here your reading of the keenness of the political leadership in localizing strategic and precision industries in a way that provides added value to the national economy and at the same time generate job opportunities?
I think since His Excellency Mr. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi directed the government to put a nationwide industry strategy to achieve something like $100 billion as export. This is the main goal for this stage. All the cabinet ministers and authorities coordinate and correlate for serious pivots and lines, because we need to develop first the infrastructure. We established more than 10,000 kilometers of roads and bridges to connecting all the governorate and ports in the Mediterranean and Red Sea, to easing and fostering the movement of goods and the people. We're developing the digital infrastructure to co-op with ICT all over the world. We did the mega projects for the high-speed trains connecting all the ports on the same two seas. We're developing all our old ports and building new ports, even last one in El Arish in Sina. All this infrastructure easing the development of the industry, because we built industrial zones in all the governorates and industrial clusters in geographical area which they have comparative advantages, like some chemicals, like some agriculture areas, and even in the garments. All this strategy, it needs a lot of good efforts. Without developing the infrastructure, without developing and building new energy stations to have more energy for these new firms, now we have more energy for running a lot of hundreds and thousands firms, and even we export the energy to our neighbors. This is the main infrastructure we need it for the industry. The industry itself, we're building the skills of the Egyptian workers and engineers. We're building a new technical and technological schools and high institutions to develop the skills to co-op with the fourth industrial revolution, because all the industry is now depending on the technology. Again, we investing a lot of money for dividing or fighting the bureaucracy, because now we have developing a lot of rules and regulations to co-op with the technology, to easing and fostering the regulations and how to get the license and all these things with the foreign investment and even for the local investment. All these things put Egypt as the main hub in Africa, attracting the foreign investments. I think now we're concentrating in the free zones area, like the Suez Canal zone, to attract the foreign investment. Even in this global crisis like the war between Russia and Ukraine, the slowdown of supply chain for all over the world, now we're suffering as most of the countries suffering. But anyway, we're building our country with our workers and our engineers.
Dr. Abdel, you have summed up the whole episode in just the first one. Let me here divide what you said.
Yeah.
Okay. So we can really focus on the real steps that were taken by the state. So first you spoke about the target of reaching Egyptian exports to $100 billion annually, and that is a target in itself. What steps have been taken by the government in order to facilitate and at the same time encourage producers, investors, and production?
Now we facilitate land and water for agriculture projects. We have now around 3.5 million faddans new with agriculture, because agriculture now is food safety. All over the world now suffering from
indeed.
the shortage of food. This is a mega project. We offer for this land for the foreign investors and even for the local investors by renting or by acquiring. This is a mega projects in New Delta and the main other project in Toshka. This is the first one. The second one, we're building industrial clusters in some geographical area. Some of these for mining in East Desert, for mining for the iron, phosphate, and for gold. This is the big one. And some in the West Desert for oil and gas. And this is a big mega project because we're depending on oil and gas for all our chemical and all the agriculture foods, we need these chemicals.
Or the agro industry?
Yeah, agro industry. I think this is two mega projects. We're depending on the discovery and big foreign investment. Again, we encouraging the local investors to develop their old factories, old firms, to added value the products. We now, since a couple of days, His Excellency Mr. President gave a speech on the Labor Day. He encouraged all the investors and all the Egyptian workers and engineers to work hard. They give them some investment, some incentives. They give especially
Actually,
for the irregular workers.
Has already given some of the incentives.
Yes. And all this encouraging them to added value to their products. We have a lot of products, especially in mining, especially in gas, especially in chemicals, and foodstuff and agriculture products.
And textile, the latest?
And textile for the garments, we have mega projects now because we are the biggest country for we offer cotton in Egypt.
We would come back to being
we
one
hope
of the
so.
first countries, particularly in the textile sector. But indeed, we have lots and lots of areas where we can really start investing in, particularly in the industry and the agro industry. Moving towards the transformation of Egypt, because the second thing you spoke about was the digital transformation, which would really help the country to cope with world requirements and help the country to modernize. This is the base of the so-called, what we have announced, the start or the announcement of the new republic. How do you view our transformation towards digitization, and what steps have been taken so far?
I think we get very strong steps now. Since 4 years now, we reached and developed the internet speed from 5 megabit per second to 45 megabit per second. This speed enough now for working home, for e-learning and all these things. And again, we have the biggest data center in Egypt, have more than 100 database collected and in the big database, secured and automated. All the government now working as sharing government for this database. We're offering now to the Egyptian citizen more than 155 e-citizen services. Most of these services coming from traffic, coming from citizenship, coming from passport, coming from fines, coming from the e-services for education and for healthcare. I think we need more services in digital way, because we eliminating time, easing and speeding all the services to the citizen, and waste and saving a lot of time, wasting time for the citizen to go in queue in any government authority. I think we succeeded till now, but a lot of obstacles and a lot of challenges we need, because now we need the culture of the Egyptian people to be digitalization. This is not, it needs a time.
Yes,
it needs a time.
So that is another important issue that you pinpointed your finger on, and which the government and the leadership have been, both have been working on, investing in human calibers.
Yeah.
Investing in human calibers in terms of training them, giving them opportunities, enhancing the learning techniques. How do you view so far, how did we go into such issues, and what steps have we been taken, and we, in terms of the government and the leadership, of course, and at the same time, what is requested from the citizen himself?
Yeah, I think last couple of years we have presidential initiatives for building capacity for the youth, especially in the ICT sector. The ICT sector sharing was around 8% from the Egyptian GDP. This is, I think, big bite of the cake. And again, we modernizing our education system by using technology. We open a lot of new universities and colleges for the artificial intelligence, big data analytics, the Internet of Things, because all these technologies we need it in the new smart cities. We have 14 new smart cities. We need thousands and hundreds of thousands of youth working in these smart cities using this technology. And again, we're preparing these youth to have international job by triple or more than triple salary. He's working in Egypt online, serving any international company in Europe and US.
How do you view initiatives so far to initiate what's the so-called technical training, technical education, and at the same time the non-conventional way of education?
Yeah, all now the training is online. It is not usually you sitting on the chair and getting the lecture. All these courses now getting, I think Ministry of Communication and Information Technology trained more than 200,000 from the people and these last technologies through online training. And they are certified now for all the databases and Microsoft Offices and all these things, and in security and all the artificial intelligence aspects now. It is easy now, most of these people now working in multinational companies, even they are traveling abroad or working on home.
A main aim was to generate job opportunities, help people to job opportunities.
Yeah.
The issue that despite the current global economic crisis and the threats that are facing the region, but so far, unemployment rate in Egypt did not decrease. To which reason do you attribute that, and how are we working in this domain?
I think the first thing we must get more care and more investment on the education system itself, since from primary schools till the universities. This is the main issue. All the countries like Malaysia going up by education system. This is the first. We now caring of the education system, but it needs time. But again, during this global crisis, we suffered like the other countries suffered.
Definitely.
Yeah, definitely. And this is why the unemployment ratio now, it is going high in all over the world, because now you create new job, it is not easy. But now...
But it did not really decrease as expected in Egypt despite all that.
Yeah, sure, because now the education system since long time, it is not, the output of the education system is not enough modernized since long time.
What I really meant here is that the unemployment rate did not, I mean, we haven't suffered in rising percentages of unemployment.
Yeah.
So why? To which reason do you attribute that?
I think a lot of reasons, because now the unemployment, most of the new markets and new jobs needs highly skills, especially in the technology and as a technician. This is, we suffering from the lack of the people have these skills. Now we're preparing ourselves by new institutes, new high schools offering these new skills. And even now, the multinational companies in Egypt have their own schools for preparing their stuff, their technical stuff.
Right. Before we delve more into our discussion, let me here take the second report. In Egypt is interested in supporting private sector to invest in Egypt's industry, according to statements by the cabinet and the prime minister. Let's watch.
Prime Minister Dr. Mustafa Madbouli visited a number of industrial investment projects in the 10th of Ramadan city. Madbouli started his visit by inspecting the LG Egypt factory. He was accompanied by Asim Al-Ghazzar, Minister of Housing, Utilities and Urban Communities, Hussam Heba, CEO of the General Authority for Investment and Free Zones, Billy Kim, General Manager of LG Egypt, and LG Egypt Vice President Ali Omar. The Prime Minister confirmed that his visit to a number of factories comes within the framework of the Egyptian state's interest in supporting and encouraging the private sector. In addition, increasing its participation in various economic activities and sectors, especially in industry, as it is an important sector of the Egyptian economy, through its contribution to increasing volume of production, providing more job opportunities and increasing the volume of national exports. Madbouli highlighted the continued efforts of various concerned state agencies to work to create an attractive climate for investments in various sectors and to ensure the continuous follow-up of the businessmen and investors community to deal immediately with any challenges that may face their work. Besides continuing to work to provide more services, facilitations and incentives that would contribute to attracting more domestic and foreign investments, to establish new companies and factories, or to expand existing ones in order to achieve desired goals of the Egyptian economy in general and the industry sectors and exports in particular. Dr. Madbouli has asserted that the government gives great attention to supporting industry sector according to a plan that focuses on sectors that increase the Egyptian exports. The Premier noted that the program aims at increasing Egyptian exports as one of the main sources of foreign currency. He added that exporting contributes to improving economic growth rates, increasing local and foreign investments in various industries, entrenching industry in exporting sectors, and localizing innovative and high-value industries.
Right. Welcome back, and back to you, Dr. Ghoneim. And we were speaking about industry investments and this very particular segment of the economy. Let me here take you reading about the decisions that were made at the last period to strengthen the role of the private sector and enable it as a major partner for the sustainable development process.
Yeah, I think there is a strong partnership between the public and the private sector cooperation, especially in the energy and new and renewable energy sector. This is the main and the big sectors now. And again,
actually, it is open for all sectors
for all, but
investments.
This is the biggest investment. Because now
infrastructure
for the energy and new energy stations, I think the German companies and banks
we're
invest
speaking
more
on the
than
level of
$12 billion in this sector. And again, I think must Egypt concentrate on the value chain industries. It means all the feeding industries must be concentrated in geographical area to feed the main industry, like the automobile industry. We must have hundreds of small and SMEs firms feeding the biggest firms in this area. Again, for the garment industry, we must geographical area, all the SMEs connecting to this garment industry must be located in the same area, saving time, saving money, saving transportation, easing moving from firm to firm in the same geographical area. Because the obstacles now...
And at the same time, lessening the raw material that are needed to be imported, right? If this SMEs or the small and medium enterprises would serve the mega one, that would really provide them with what is really needed of raw material and whatsoever, right?
Yeah, if we cluster them in geographical area to be specialized in same products, we're preparing now for the more automobile industry in Suez Canal free zone. This is the biggest one. A lot of feeding industry working in this, and the same in the garments. I think now we must concentrate on mining, because Egypt have a lot of minerals. We must use it in industry and use it for export.
Remember, Sam, about mining, particularly mining, and the white and black sands.
Yeah.
When the president spoke about or invited business people in the private sector to
we have some industries now based on the white sand, especially we have some factors for glasses and some solar ships. This is instead of exporting, it is in raw material. Now we added value to it. Again, for the black sand, we use it for some radiation materials.
Actually, it has enormous ways of using that that material, and it works in many issues.
It has the highest value, but we need to do some steps to added value. It needs high tech sometimes.
Yes, indeed. Indeed, but it is open for
It is opened. Yeah,
for
I think
people
last
to-
year Egypt did and published a new decree for mining for the big investors, from foreign investors, because since long time the mining is only for the local investors. Now it is open for the external investors.
Actually, local and foreign direct investments
Now.
are invited to
Now.
The whole private sector. And we're speaking about the local ones
because
and the foreign ones.
Since long time the mining, it is surrounded by only some local investors. Now it is
Indeed.
open for the foreigner investors.
For everybody,
Yeah. Even
Egypt has been
local,
working on
local and,
attracting the
foreigner, yeah.
FDIs and the local
Yeah.
as well. And what I was actually speaking about were the procedures and measures that were taken by the government to facilitate the integration of the private sector into the economy, or further integrating business, the private businesses into the economy. And for an instance, the golden license
Yeah.
and one-stop shop.
Quick license, one-stop shop, yeah.
Yes. So how do you view that? How did that help?
Yeah, the main challenge in Egypt, especially in the government sector, is bureaucracy. Yani, do you remember last year, the big issue is the ports clearance and logistics. Most of the goods concentrated on the ports. It takes time. It takes fines for the foreigner companies, because most of the goods waiting in the ports for a few days.
But that was...
It is solved now.
Yes,
It
indeed.
is solved now, but in internationally, it takes few hours, not few days. This is wasting time, wasting money.
So we're speaking here about bureaucracy.
Yeah, this is the bureaucracy.
And
We can fighting the bureaucracy by awareness for the people, by training for the people, by using the digital transformation for all the procedures. We must going to the digital technology.
definitely bureaucracy is an impeding issue to
And
any
we
kind of
haven't, and
developmental
we
process.
haven't
But
at that time
Egypt has worked on that,
KPIs.
right?
I think now the government put KPIs for all the industrial authorities to measure is it all right or not. Because now the main issue for the industry, it is not only the Ministry of Trade and Industry. All the ministers sharing the same projects, even in the transportation and even for the health and even for the ports. Most of them sharing for the exportation.
Transforming Egypt into a regional industrial center in the Middle East and Africa. And Egypt has been aiming for that, and hence has increased the industrial zones and complexes
Yeah.
in different areas. We've heard the President speaking of maximizing the usage of such complexes and industrial zones. How do you view the importance of that, and how do you view those industrial zones?
No, I think Egypt have the biggest and the most important location as the main gate to Africa and the main gate to the Middle East. We have a lot of agreement with the European Union. We have agreement with COMESA. We have agreement with the African Union states. This agreement, it facilitate Egypt to give some free zones areas in Egypt, and even in some located in the west of African countries. We can export these products to our free zone there. We have free zone area in Uganda related to Egypt. We can export all these products, even coming from Egypt. I think now the BRICS companies, the BRICS countries have a free zone area in
Russia,
Suez
China,
Canal.
and other.
Yes, area, because it is easy instead of manufacturing in China, manufacturing in Egypt, and going these products to Europe through Egypt and to Africa.
What I meant here is how to perfectly utilize and exploit those industrial complexes as they are already or we have already existing mills and areas where we can really invest in industry at once.
Yeah, and I think the main area now we can playing on the ICT sector, because we have a lot of genius people working in all these technological area. We can export a lot of software and services, because now the export not only goods, it is the services, gain more money, more the goods, and the agriculture area and food stuff.
Dr. Ghoneim, we're speaking here about complexes, already existing complexes, built one, and I guess that there are many of the complexes that are ready to take industries such as you said, respectively, the mining ones, the cement, the iron, the
yeah, and the oil and gas.
and the,
the
definitely.
oil and the gas.
So how to utilize or exploit the usage of such complexes in the most perfect way in order to maximize the benefit out of them?
I think now we're maximizing all these things, especially for the gas. We're exporting the gas as natural since a few months now. We're using our gas for manufacturing ethylene and methane and all these things, which is a high value than exporting the gas itself. We're utilizing now our resources for mining and for gas and for oil. From all oil and the gas, we're now producing a lot of chemicals, products. We export these chemicals. We're using for the agriculture.
The President has issued a decree last month to establish the Supreme Council for investment.
Yeah.
He will preside that council himself and follow up, and it includes the Prime Minister and I guess not a number but rather all ministries and institutions. All related institutions in the country. How do you view such a council? What is requested from that council?
I think it is a very strong step, because why? When the leadership is on the head of this Supreme Council, it following all the issues, and it is easy in solving all the obstacles and challenges between this ministry and this authority. It is easy, and it is easy to get quick decision solving any obstacles, any problems. I think we need something like good cooperation between all the ministers and authorities, because most of them correlate and co-op in all the areas.
Finally here, Dr. Ghoneim, and what do you think is needed more in this very particular file?
I think we must change our mindset around industry. Industry is the main driver for the whole country. We must concentrate on what we have cumulative advantages in the agriculture, in mining, in gas and oil, and in chemicals, and even for manufacturing the tools and the sets. The Egyptian economy is diversity. We cannot concentrate on one sector instead of the other sectors. We must going all over of them, but we concentrate with which area we have cumulative advantage. This advantage, I think, the agriculture is the main advantage we have.
Definitely, food security and agriculture is one important sector that
And the
we are
garments.
very much into.
The garments.
The industrial sector at large.
All
Indeed.
of them, all
Indeed.
the sectors are important,
Indeed.
but we must concentrate on some
We are already
lighted
concentrating.
one.
We are very much into that file, and this was the topic tonight. Dr. Abdel Ghoneim, Vice President of the Arab Union for Digital Economy and Economic Expertise, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you very much for this delighted dialogue.
Thank you so much. And dear viewers, many thanks for watching. Next debate would be on Sunday with another colleague. Good night.